today's episode of the Endurance Matters podcast, I have on one of my very good friends, Tim O'Donnell. We talk about so much on this podcast, a little bit about his journey into the sport, his amazing career results, and just some of the little things that I picked up training with him for many, many years, and all of those little stories that I heard out on the bike. I try to bring those to you today in the podcast, so hope you enjoy this episode with my good friend, Tim. All right, welcome to the Endurance Matters podcast. I'm your host, Justin Metzler. Today I've got good friend on the podcast, Tim O'Donnell. He is a professional triathlete, businessman, husband to Miranda Carfrae, multiple Ironman champion, father to Izzy, Finn, Jameson, and most importantly, just overall good dude. Welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Thanks, Justin. Look at you, man. You got a podcast now.
You know what?
This guy, he's doing it all.
I'm doing it all. I'm trying to do it all, but I learned from the great businessman himself. You got to diversify. You know, you can't pigeonhole yourself too much.
That's true. That's true.
All right, so I start the podcast off with one hard-hitting icebreaker question. You ready?
Yep. Hit me.
F, marry, kill. I think you know this game.
All right.
You've heard this one before. Red wine.
Yep.
Old fashions. Coffee.
Oh, my God. I'd have to kill the old fashioned.
Ooh, that is a shocking answer.
Red wine for the F. Coffee for Mary.
I'm actually shocked by that.
Dude, how are you not going to get through every day without coffee?
I know, but I feel like you really value the red wine, no?
I do, but I got to function.
I know, no, I'm with you. Yeah, we had to go get some blood. We did some blood work, just some routine blood work this morning, and we had to delay our coffee like an hour to go get the blood work, and it was like the worst hour.
Yeah, it throws everything off.
Of my year. Yeah. Well, anyways, we'll get into it here. How you doing, man?
Good. Yeah. Life is a lot different now.
Yeah.
Training kind of casually. I got Xterra Quebec coming up shortly, but mainly focusing on the family and Salty Bears, our new coaching business. And I'm saying yes to pretty much everything right now. Just seeing what I want my next steps to be. So not trying to commit to what life's going to look like, but just seeing what's out there.
Yeah. Are you like calling it semi-retirement, or is this like you're still professional triathlete, or is there a gray area there?
No, I mean, I am officially retired from Ironman racing 100%. I'm looking, you want to stay fit, you need goals to keep moving forward, even if they're not earth-shattering goals. So something like Xterra Quebec is a fun way that I can go and keep myself honest with some training. I'm training like a dad right now, 10 to 12 hours a week. I'm not training like, we used to back in the day.
Yeah.
You're still doing with Lake Placid coming up. But it's a nice way to stay fit and make it a family event too. The whole family's coming out. So we can kind of all travel together, have a good time. Yeah,
that's cool. I'm really curious because, this is sort of a new phase of life for you. I feel like for probably 15, 20 years, you were somewhat rinse and repeat on what every year looked like. What does a day in the life look like now in 2024 compared to maybe what life looked like 10 years ago in 2014?
A lot less sleep. A lot less sleep, Justin.
Yeah.
No, it's hard because, Rennie and I are both really transitioning careers that we've, like you said, we've been rinsing and repeating for over 2 decades.
Yeah.
And now we're both going through transitions, and she's doing an amazing job commentating. And of course, with Salty Bears as well. But, we have a new little baby. And, after my heart incident a couple years back, I'm very cognizant of the time that I spend with the kids. So they're always going to win. I mean, unless it's something very, very pressing, like, if I have the choice, I'm going to pick up and we're going to go, randomly go camping in Lyons for the night.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's going to be. And I'm pretty happy with that. So, it's what I do really miss about just purely training was the structure my day got. So I'm really having to redevelop what my day will look like and how I break that up into, whether it's, busy work or business development with Triathlete in the team or trying to train. And then obviously kid time. And balancing that with Rennie's schedule. So it's a work in progress, but I'm usually up a lot later. Not training is hard, so I can deal with it, but it's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I want to go back a little bit. Like, I have so many questions, and I feel like as I was preparing for this podcast, like you and I have spent so much time together training and just like socializing and hanging out. So I feel like I know so much about you, and there's so many little stories that, yeah, like I was thinking
you got all the dirt, buddy.
I know. I got too much dirt. I could totally
shut this podcast down right now.
I could cancel Tio right now so easily. I'm going to try not to on the podcast. But like, give me the 5-minute rundown of how you got into triathlon and endurance sports, and maybe why it stuck for you in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I swam pretty much my whole life. I started swimming when I was 5 years old. Started swimming year round when I was 8 or 9. So yeah, I was just spent my whole life in the pool. When I went to the Naval Academy, I kind of followed my older brother Thomas's footsteps, and he didn't make the swim team at the academy, so he somehow got into triathlon. He joined the club tri team. And then my freshman year, he was a senior at the academy, so he actually ordered me. He gave me an order as an upper class to go and try out for the tri team. And I did it, and I made the team, and I hated running so much. Like, just, you know, I probably weighed 20 more pounds than I do now. I had a lot more upper body mass. And running just wasn't natural for me. It didn't feel good. So it took me 2 years of kind of balancing triathlon and swimming at the academy to realize that, you know, maybe I could be really good at triathlon. And I went to collegiate nationals the end of my sophomore year with almost no training, and I was the first finisher on the academy team. And that's where I kind of like, okay, maybe if I put some effort into this, and I love to work. I was a distance swimmer. You know, I was the least talented athlete in my family, so the only way I was going to achieve anything was working harder than everybody else. And that seemed to really align with triathlon.
Yeah.
Where you got to train for 3 sports.
Yeah.
So I finally saw the challenges of the sport and appreciated them and wanted to give it the effort it deserved.
Yeah. And so that was early 2000s?
Geez, that was, 2001-ish.
Yeah. At that time, was it feasible to be a professional triathlete? Did you feel like that was something that immediately became the North Star? Or was it like, okay, this is going to be a hobby and I've got the Navy always to fall back on?
I didn't even know that professional triathlon was a thing. I didn't know you could make a career out of it. And I actually remember, fast forward a few years, I was at the Olympic Training Center on the collegiate resident summer program. And I was talking to Andy Potts, and he had just bought a house. And I'm like, whoa, time out. You make enough money to buy a house?
Yeah.
It kind of blew my mind. I loved it, and I was really drawn to the sport. And at that point, I didn't realize that it could be a career. I was doing it out of love, maybe a little addiction to it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, ultimately wanting to make the Olympic team and go to the Olympics. As a swimmer, that's all you ever dream about as a swimmer is going to the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Kind of similar. You don't really see that as a professional career, especially back in, you know, the 90s when I was growing up. But I think it was more just trying to go to the Olympics that was the initial draw.
And so you ended up at the Olympic Training Center, like you mentioned. What was that process like? What was that like to get there? And maybe, just walk me a little bit through, like maybe not making the dream of getting to the Olympics and transitioning over to long course.
So I think you met my buddy Nathan.
Yeah.
So Nathan was at the academy with me, and we would train together. He introduced me to his friend Alan Lay, who was actually one of the worked for USA Triathlon, was on like the whole development program. Alan ended up being my coach when I was at the academy, and he really, you know, brought me to being a top age group athlete. And he pulled a lot of strings to get me into the development pipeline. And the USAT coaches at the time did not want me there. I wasn't the best runner. They did not see any potential in me. And I just kept showing up. Like, I remember at the end of one of those, that summer camp, I had another 3 weeks of leave before I had to go back to the academy. And I really wanted to stay. And they're like, oh no, they wanted to get me out of there. They're like, oh no, sorry, we don't have any beds. I'm like, that's okay, I'll find a place to sleep. Can I just still train with you guys? And they're like, okay, fine. So I slept on a buddy's couch for the rest of the summer because I didn't want to leave. I'm like, no, you're not getting rid of me that easily. I'm going to keep showing up. And then, you know, fast forward, 20 years later, still hanging around. But I feel like I didn't really get into my stride with running until 2009. So I went to Olympic trials in 2008, missed it.
Yeah.
I think I was 6th at trials maybe. But I had been seeing this progression in my run that others weren't seeing because I was doing it in training and not racing, and it hadn't quite clicked on the race course yet.
Yeah.
So 2009, I was totally on the straddling the fence. You know, I was really running well, and you look back at the U.S. Nationals Championships and then Pan American Champs. I was on the podium at both of those in 09 and 10. So I had brought my running up, and I was honestly in a good spot to make to have potential to make that 2012 team.
Yeah.
But I also saw the writing on the wall that, hey, you know what, this could be a career, and my career is not going to be chasing the Olympic dream. It's going to be chasing Ironman.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I met Rennie and went to Kona and saw the magic of Kona. I'm like, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go this direction.
Yeah. Did you know straight away, like, having gotten into the long course training, you know, you said you're a hard worker, you're a guy who shows up, you wanted to kind of grind it out. Not that ITU, you're not grinding it out, or short course, you're not grinding it out and putting the hours in and working hard. You do that across any sort of discipline of triathlon. But like when you got into the 70.3 and Ironman circuit, where you're like, okay, this is kind of home now. I
always knew that the long course was going to be my bread and butter. I never actually thought I was going to do an Ironman. I remember one of my other buddies at the academy, he's only 18 or 19. He did Kona. He was like one of the youngest guys to ever do Kona, whatever the minimum age is. And I'm like, you're crazy, man. Like, I'm short course. But I knew 70.3s was going to be a thing. And I remember Sarah Haskins' husband, Nate, Sarah Cordham.
Yeah.
I remember he did the first 70.3 Worlds when I was at the Olympic Training Center. And I'm like, 70.3 Worlds? What is that? You know? But that really kind of piqued my curiosity. But you know what? So much of it came down to confidence, Justin. I just didn't have the confidence in my running at that time. And it took one of my first 70.3s in 09 when I started straddling the fence, where I lost all my nutrition on the bike, like right away. Was minutes down and just made a decision, hey, let's just try to have a really great run. You've been working on your run all winter. I was working with Cliff English back then, and we were doing 90, 95-mile run weeks, plus swimming and running up here in altitude. So my run fitness was awesome. And I said, all right, just forget it. Like, you may not win this race. Who cares? You just see how fast you can run. Like, let's try to make this a positive. And I had the fastest run on that day.
Nice.
And it just takes that one little instance where you get that confidence that you know you can do it. You always believed you can, but now it's like very concrete and finite. Like, okay. Yeah. And from there, you can kind of build off of it.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that, because I resonate with that so much. Like, I never really grew up as much of a runner myself, and it wasn't until, and you probably saw this development happen because it happened over the course of the years that we were training together, where I was just sort of always in the 115, 116 range. I pop off a 110 randomly, and I'm like, whoa, something's happening here. And then I started to get that belief. I started to get that confidence. And then that becomes the new standard of like, all right, I'm not a 115 guy anymore. I'm running 110s at all these races. And then, you just end up, that's just the expectation. You just deliver upon it.
It's like when you're a kid, the first time, if you're a swimmer, the first time you break a minute in the 100 free.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now you pretty much break it every time after that, right?
100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're right. I saw that transformation happen. It was a lot of fun. I saw a lot of similarities in the way you train and your dedication and focus to myself. And that's probably why we clicked so well when we were training together.
Yeah. Sponsor of today's episode is Precision Fuel and Hydration. These guys have been an awesome partner of mine for many years, and I really love the entire product line. They helped me tremendously when it came down to getting my fluid needs sorted out, getting my electrolyte needs organized, and also just figuring out how many carbs per hour I needed. And they have an entire product line that has a lot of variety and different options for you. So my favorite option from them is the PF30 Chew. I sort of take them out of their wrapper and load them into my top tube storage compartment on my bike and just munch on those every 20 or 30 minutes when I'm out doing a hard training session or doing a race. They also have a bunch of sweat experts over there who can help you figure out exactly what your fluid, carbohydrate, and electrolyte needs are. So head on over to pfandh.com, and that will get you, code BigMetz will get you 15% off your first order. So enjoy that and check them out. That was like the main point in the preparation for this podcast. I wanted to talk more and give people an inside look at the time that we trained together, because I look back on those years so fondly. Like, those were some of the most fun years that I have had training, and it was a really significant part of my career. I've been a pro for 10 years, but we trained together pretty much 25 hours a week for 3 years straight. So for those that don't know, Tim and I had the same coaches, Julie Dibbins and Matt Bottrell, for probably, like I said, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, maybe be longer than that.
It might have been 4.
Yeah.
And I mean, we obviously knew each other sort of, like when I wasn't getting coached by Julie, but then ultimately when I started getting coached by her, we trained together a whole bunch, just inherently being part of the same squad, and that was 2019. And why do you think, I mean, you had a bunch of success. You probably had arguably your best years being coached by Julie.
Yeah.
Like, what about that environment and maybe training with myself and training with other athletes in the JD crew worked well for you?
Yeah, Greg Bennett used to always tell me that coaches are like degrees. You learn what you can from a coach, and at some point you graduate.
Yeah.
And Julie was really my third really influential coach as a pro. Mm-hmm. And I always knew I would work with her at one point, and it was just a matter of when. And really, I looked before then training with Mark. I was overtrained leading into training with him, and I just needed a reset. And that, like, his philosophy of zone 2 and raising that kind of heart rate, it really worked well to elongate my career. And then coming in with the energy, I knew I needed guys like you at that point in my career. That was what, 2018 or 2018, I guess.
Yeah.
I knew I needed guys around me that could help support me and that I could help support too.
Yeah.
And I think I don't have an ego when I train. And I think that really helps.
Yeah.
Like the flow of training with people.
Yeah.
And I've always been very calculated at how I train too, and not getting too excited and overdoing it. But at the same time, I've been doing it a long time. So having being able to train with you and Matt, it was a breath of fresh air in the sense that Patrick back then too.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Like, I'm getting a little old. Sometimes motivation gets a little harder, but here's these young guys, they're freaking trying to take over the world right now. And that's what I want to be around. That's the energy that I need. And maybe I can throw a couple bones of wisdom, their way as a thank you.
Yeah.
So I think it really worked well in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, did you know, because over the course of that time, I tried to ask you a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I tried to observe as much as I could from you and Matt. Did you know that you were having like that mentor role? Did you realize that was happening, or were we just training and you didn't really think about it?
Yeah, I know I did. I was cognizant of it, and I used to do the same thing with Craig Alexander.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could get on a ride with Crowe, I would do it, and I would ask as many questions.
Yeah.
If I didn't want to talk, if I was tired, I'd ask him about Macca, and he would just go. He would just
Off
go
he
off.
goes. Yeah.
So I understood. For me, it was important that the one mistake I made was, even with Rinny, seeing she had a lot of influence on my career earlier.
Yeah.
I had to realize that what Crowe and Rinny were doing was their thing, and take everything that they do with a grain of salt and adapt it to yourself.
Yeah.
So in one sense, I wanted to be able to share, experience with you guys, but I also knew that you needed to mold it and figure it out and put it in the Justin formula or the Matt Hansen formula, right?
100%. Yeah, that's a point that I want to talk about a little bit later. But like, Jeannie and I always looked up so much to you and Rinny, not only what you guys did as athletes on the course, but how you conducted yourselves just as humans and as people and as parents and just people in the community and as role models. And I think originally we were like, oh, we just have to do it the way they're doing it. But then we realized after a year or two that it's like, well, that's their success formula.
Yep.
And we have to, again, take the little nuggets that we can apply to our life, but really like make it our own.
Yep.
So maybe we found that now, but
Yeah, I mean, that took me till 2000. My first Kona was 2011. 2015 was the first Kona where I'm like, no, this is my big race. I'm not just here. It's not Rinny's day and I'm just kind of here. Like, no, this is my day and I'm going to do exactly everything I need. I'm going to fly in by myself. I'm not going to fly on Rinny's schedule because it works great for her. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple of years to be like, all right, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely want to get back to the dynamic between you and Rinny and how you guys handled all of that, because Jeannie and I probably go through a lot of the same parallel things, both doing it at a high level, but I'm not done asking questions about the time we trained together.
Yes, yeah.
Like what, I guess specifically training with me, what were some of the things that you liked training with me, and maybe what were some of the things that were like, oh man, I just can't stand it when Justin does this?
When you were really fit, your zone 2, like, power.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this guy's just unrelenting. He's just keeping like, oh my God, I might have to sit on his wheel right now.
Yeah.
But I can't show weakness.
Yeah.
And honestly, the attitude was the best part for me. And you were really good about doing the sets too, and not like your discipline really aligned well with me as well.
Yeah.
And our conversations too.
I mean,
like we could roll for a 6-7 hour ride.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's what we said. I feel like whenever we trained, I think we would even talk about that on the bike. Like, oh, why does this relationship work? And why are sometimes training partner relationships really difficult? And I think the big things I think about are reliability. Like if we said we were rolling on a Wednesday, we were rolling on a Wednesday. Is it one of the homies?
Yeah.
Can you just have a chat?
The caveat with knowing that Tim might be 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
He'll be there. He might be 5 minutes late.
I kind of knew, like, because I would always ride to your house. We'd meet at your house because you just happened to pick a house like on the way out. I knew that was on purpose, man. He's like, I'm going to pick a house at the edge of town so everyone has to ride to me and I can be the last one out the door.
I am the closest to the meetup point and still the last person there.
I knew I was in trouble. Like if I rocked up to the garage all ready to go, already warmed up 20 minutes and Izzy comes out.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, if I'm having a conversation with Izzy right now, I know Tim sent her out here to deal with me. And I'm
all of a sudden you're jumping on the trampoline.
I'm on the trampoline. And I always knew I was really in trouble when it was like, I'm taking my shoes off and coming in. If I'm taking my bike shoes off and coming in, I'm in trouble. And that happened like, you were pretty good. I mean, you were pretty good.
You know, it's funny. I had the same exact thing with Crowy.
Really?
And I think once like the kids get involved, I didn't get it. I'm like, oh, come on, Crowy, just be on time.
Yeah.
And once we had kids, I'm like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, totally. I never really minded because for me, once we got out there, it was just so worth it.
And like having people around you that you know aren't gonna want to take shortcuts.
Yeah,
because you know, like, hey, we're gonna do this is set. We're gonna freaking do this set. We're gonna do it right.
100%.
Yeah, I couldn't be out there training with people that were like, oh, maybe we'll just trim this or no, like we're gonna do the set.
Yeah, and the other way, I mean, I've been training with some people lately who are like just the opposite. If we say, oh, we're gonna do 3 by 20 minutes at 300 watts.
Yeah.
Like you and I would stick to it and we'd say, this is our training plan. And I think both of us just really trusted and believed in the coaching that we had at the time. So it was really easy for a coach to say, do this. We trusted it. We didn't overthink it. We just thought about, we thought about executing the session as best as we could and nothing more. Whereas now I think it's an interesting time with a lot of us being self-coached.
I don't know how you do it.
It's a challenge. And I think like I've adapted to it okay because I try to just remove myself and think about it from a coaching perspective, write the plan, don't deviate. But a lot of the people who I'm training with are like, I consider them training partners, but there's this element of like, okay, we agree on 3 by 20 minutes at 300 watts. And then if someone's feeling good, I'm doing 400 now.
Right.
Or they're saying, I'm going to do this one at 400. And I'm still very much like the way we always did it. Like set the plan. There's a reason why we're doing 3 by 20 at X power, and we just execute and we can try to just string together week after week after week after week and just be consistent. And I think that's why we were successful. But I think part of that was there was multiple reasons why we were successful. I think that was just one element. It was good atmosphere, good training. Yeah. We were all fit. Anyways, that was kind of it was just such an interesting time and such like a good time. And I'm trying my best to, you mentioned Crowy. Now there's this whole new generation of young guys coming up. Somehow, and I'm sure you know how this is, now I'm in your position with these young guys around trying to herd cats.
Time is undefeated, man.
Somehow it's undefeated. Yeah, somehow it's undefeated. But looking back, it was good for me to like kind of go back through your results the other day because I was like, oh man, okay, Tim's 43. Like he was starting to hit it when he was 31. I'm 31 now.
Yeah, I mean, I
still got time.
Yeah, I mean, heck, some of my best Ironmans were 38, right? 39,
for sure.
And I look back, like I have so much love for Julie Dibbins and of course Matt Bottrell as well. But I can't really say it's my fault, but I regret like if I look back at the years I worked with Julie, we never had a clean run. Right? I started working with her in 18, and I broke my foot at the beginning of that year. Yeah. And then I broke my foot again in 19. Yeah. And then COVID, and then heart. It's like, man, like even through all that, we were still, on the rise together. So, yeah, part of me wishes that you can't change anything, but you know, either had more time in that program, or just, man, if we had like a really clean run for even 18 months, it would have been something pretty cool.
Do you think everything happens for a reason? Or do you think, like you're saying, had you had a 2-year stretch with no interruption, you would have maybe gotten the win in Kona or won a big world title or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, you never know, right? Maybe I would have trained myself into the ground and I never would have gotten to the start line. Yeah. But yeah, you do, like, I still wonder, like, and I do think everything happens for a reason. I think there's things play out, and you got to roll with it, and you can't have regret, really. You just play the hand you've been dealt.
Yeah. What do they say? Like hindsight, you always look back with like rose-colored glasses or something like that. Like I feel very similar about my time. Like I had so much good results throughout my time with Julie, and I look back and I could maybe be critical and say, oh, maybe if I had done X, I would have won X Ironman, or I would have had more wins here or there. But I kind of believe that everything happens for a reason, and I do genuinely believe that in the training, given what we had and the circumstances, like I know for myself, I extracted everything I could over that time, and just being a witness to what you did, I felt like you extracted as much as you possibly could given the circumstance. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really control the outcomes. You can just control how hard you work,
Yeah. And I do feel like you particularly, Justin, I really do think you have maximized, what, like you took everything that they gave you and you made the most of it.
I tried.
That's all. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all going to look back at this, and it's not necessarily going to be the results. It's going to be the person that you became.
Yeah.
Because of the process that you went through, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really where the joy in all of this lies.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, I know for myself, when you're kind of rolling and you're getting the results and things are kind of coming easier, you maybe detach a little bit from that perspective, and you're just so focused on how do I win? How do I win? How do I win? How do I get on another podium? You just try to kind of ride that wave. And it didn't take until I had like some setbacks to maybe reframe the perspective and understand it from that point of view of like, it's about the journey. It's about the process. It's about the enjoyment. It's about going on the long rides with you, going on the long rides with Andre, going on the long rides with Matt, stopping at the gas station, having a chat, or both of us being totally cracked and not saying a word. Like those are kind of the memories. Like, did you always have that perspective of like looking back on the memories, or did you also feel like, oh, okay, I was kind of getting stuck in that cycle of just trying to win,
No, it's ebbs and flows, right? And it's part of your journey and where you are at in your career. In like 2010, I had a massive breakout season in 2009. I went from, not being able to get in the top 10 in a World Cup in the ITU series to, pretty much winning everything I did that year, or at least being on the podium, never off the podium that year. So 10, I had a lot of pressure. Like, you got to keep that up. You got to build off that. But then you start surrounding yourself with the right people. Rennie came into my life, and, some of the older athletes like Crowe and Greg Bennett, Chris Lee, and their perspective was so good that it was a short window for me to be like, okay, you know what? Like, let's reset here and really look at what is going on. And it's not all about winning Ironman 70.3 Moose Man in New Hampshire,
100%. Yeah. And that also happens a little bit with age, probably. Like when you're 25 Moose Man, or 70.3 Waco, or 70.3 Augusta. Like, of course, these are important. The races are always important for us because there's like such a financial impact for us. There's a ego component. There's also this component of just like the time. This was a conversation Jeannie and I had this morning of like, unfortunately in triathlon, the time to, oftentimes, not always, the time to dollars in professional triathlon, the math isn't adding up.
No, we have the worst ROI in any professional sport.
It's brutal.
In terms of the time training.
Yeah, totally. So, but anyways, we do it for the love, and we all know that. And if you can score a big one every once in a while, that definitely makes it worth it.
You're taking your retirement up front. That's all you're doing.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the thing is like, how hard are we actually working, right? Like, it's not all doom and gloom. We could be sitting behind a desk. You could have sat behind a desk for 20 years or been on a boat somewhere on the Navy, and crunching numbers, or, who knows what you
I would have been messing with bombs. I mean, I'm quite grateful that I was able to, do triathlon.
100%. Yeah. You've mentioned Crowe a couple times. Like before we even became friends, like I knew from afar about your relationship with him and how he was kind of a mentor to you. He was obviously incredibly successful in Kona. You ultimately became very successful in Kona, but it wasn't just Crowe. You had people like you mentioned, Chris Lee, Greg Bennett, Julie, Rennie, Siri,
Matt
Jan.
Reed back in the day was really instrumental for me when I moved to Boulder. He basically took me under his wing in 2009. I just trained. I did whatever Matt did, and we're going to the track. I'm running with Matt, and that was that's where like Cliff English and I made a decision. Like, hey, you know what? Sometimes it's better to not do exactly what you need to do, but just go get your butt kicked by one of the best in the world. And at that time, Matt was almost unbeatable in 70.3s.
Huge. Yeah. He was an idol of mine because he was also like
Big
same
boy.
size. Yeah.
I got a great photo of him and Rinny riding next to each other. And
Oh, it's got to be insane. Yeah.
oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, Rennie and I did a lot of rides together where she was like, I'm going to sit behind BigMetz today. This is going to be the draft that I'm getting on.
The coveted wheel.
Yeah, I remember I went to the Chicago Triathlon signing with Maddie Reed. It was like at the Fuji tent or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It was probably 2007.
I think I might have been there that year.
Were you?
I got lapped on the run at Chicago.
Okay.
By Matt and Crowe were having a head-to-head battle.
Oh.
And they lapped me on the run, and it was right through an aid station. I think I got in Matt's way, and he started cursing me out. This is before we started training together.
Nice.
And he came up and apologized to me afterwards.
Really?
But I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's like, get out of my
so
way,
sorry,
young buck.
guys.
Yeah.
Here they are, two greats battling each other, and I'm getting lapped.
Yeah,
trying to get
totally.
a little bit of Coke.
Yeah, 100%. But that's, I mean, yeah, you need to go through those. You definitely need to take your licks a little bit in the sport before
Absolutely.
you can graduate. But I guess like the question here is what, I guess amongst all of the high performers, because you've surrounded yourself with incredible high performers, like one of the best, highest performing people in the sport has been your wife.
Yep.
In addition to, surrounding yourself with the likes of Crowe and Jan, like these are the GOATs. What's a common thread or a takeaway? Is there a common thread or takeaway that you took from being around those people?
A lot of them are very different. And unwavering dedication really is, to me, that's the biggest common factor. Like Rinny was very different from someone like Jan, who was very meticulous and wanted to kind of get and dive into everything, know everything. Rinny didn't care. She's like, I trust Siri. I'm going to do the work exactly as she said, and I'm not going to like stress or waste my time on anything else. I'm just going to like do the work and execute and race day and be ferocious, on the right race course. So yeah, they all were kind of different, but they all showed up every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is in triathlon, like you can't get away from the work.
Yep.
You just got to do the work. And I think it's about the work and then it's about the right level of confidence and attitude and all of those things. And you mentioned early on, there was a big, like progression when you first started dating Rinny. Like, what was that? What do you think that was?
Well,
for you personally.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had a lot of life changes getting out of the Navy, the end of 2008, moving to Boulder.
Yeah.
That was really the catalyst. And I joked to Rinny that I had to win a race before she talked to me at St. Croix. Because we had actually met the year before in the med tent at Buffalo Springs Lake.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I had a 3-minute lead with a mile to go, and I melted down and I didn't win. I think maybe Luke Bell beat me.
Been there, brother.
My gosh, dude, 3-minute lead with a mile to go, and
that's tough in a 70.3.
Yeah,
that's tough. You must have run like a 9-minute mile.
It was like a 9:30 or something. I had a few of those back then, but back then I was just racing hard. I just raced as hard as I could from the gun.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times I raced a little too hard, but you learn from that, right?
For sure.
But yeah, so I do think I kind of catapulted before Rinny and I really became a thing. But when we started dating kind of that summer of July, summer of 2009, and I do think it was just part of this like culmination of being where I needed to be in life. And it's hard to be happy. Like, it's hard to find the right person if you're not happy in the right place. And I think it was just an indicator that when I made that move to Boulder and I found great people here to train with and to support me, that I was in the right place.
Yeah.
And then I didn't want a girlfriend at the time. Like, I'd come off of a long relationship, didn't end well. And I'm just going to focus on training, a little bit of, just fired up. But the right person comes along, you have to, you can't ignore it. Of course, While I did ignore her on Facebook for a couple of weeks, Rinny sent me a Facebook request. And I'm like, I'm going to play it cool here. Whoa. And then I just forgot about it, actually. And like, oh, crap, I got to like, you
ghosted her, bro.
She's like, I almost gave up on you.
Wow. We have a similar story. I'll get into it when I interview Jeannie one day, but who knew Facebook really was the hot spot, Yeah. All right. Well, I do want to talk obviously more about your and Rinny's dynamic. I think Rinny, like, she's such an incredible athlete. She's won Kona 3 times.
Yeah.
I think, like, I want to just highlight your results in Kona first before we talk about that. You know, Rinny won in 2010, 2013, 2014. You were, I don't know the exact years, but 4th, 5th, 3rd, 6th, 4th, and 2nd in Kona.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I looked it up, so it is right. I think, like, I'm curious to hear more about those years when you guys were both performing so highly in Kona. I think some of your good results, like your second, she was kind of exiting her Kona time. But I could understand, and I have felt it on a lower level, how, like, if your spouse is winning the race, you're going there having insane performances, like arguably as good as anyone else is racing in the world. Yeah. Like, were those results getting overshadowed by Rinny winning the race?
Probably, but deservedly so, right? Like, I mean, she's still the champ. It's interesting. You look at my best races were probably 15, 18, and 19. Yeah. And those were Rinny's worst performances. So to some extent, you wonder, like, is there so much energy in the family? And, you know, it's always been a question for me, you know, like, or the other knows that it's that athlete's turn, or their partner's turn to shine. I don't know. But I remember 2015, I was pretty focused. You know, I've been in the top 5 and kind of like hovering, and I'm like, I gotta make some progress. And then Rinny got hit by a car before the race, and that same night, the guy I was with, we were coming back from a sponsor appearance, and he passed out while driving. So he starts driving on a leahy into the other lane. Oh boy! And so I grabbed the wheel, like, pull us back, and then I hit the handbrake. I'm like, oh my God, like, we just almost, like,
drove into the ocean there, or into what's the coffee shop there?
So I'm like, oh my God. So we come back, and I'm like eating dinner by myself, just like, oh, that was horrible. Yeah. And then she comes. I hadn't seen her since she got hit by the car, so we're just both kind of sitting quietly at the dinner table, like, what is going on?
Totally. Yeah.
But I knew I'm like, all right, this is my year. Like, I gotta. Yeah. It's almost like there was, like, I was going through my stuff, she was going through her stuff, and you're like, okay, sorry, right now, like, we're focused internally. Yeah. And that was a breakout for me with my first podium, and an unfortunate DNF for Rinny. But honestly, at that time, she was thinking about having a family too. So that was a tough year for her, because she really wanted to step back and start a family. And then the DNF kind of forced her to go back in 16 before taking a break to have kids. So that was a tough time for her too.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting one. I mean, at least from my perspective, it's kind of a bummer, because that's just how it works in the pro triathlon couple sphere. Like, very, very rarely, and I know you guys feel this too. Are you both hitting it at the same time? That's on, like, the macroscopic level of, like, just every day to day. And then there's also this, like, very intense microscopic level of, like, just both nailing it at the same day, at the same time, at the same race. I think it's easier to do at some lower level races. Like, Jeannie and I have done that before, where we can both go to a 70.3x and both maybe win or get on the podium, and we're, like, all stoked and excited. But when it comes to maybe both of us preparing for a championship race or a big Ironman or something, like, it's so difficult. And I think, at least what we found, or what I've viewed, is, like, there's just this, it's not necessarily a discussion of, like, oh, okay, this year you get 30% and I'm going to take 70%. Right, and then next year it'll flip and you get 70%, 30%. It's kind of just, you, like, ride this wave or this arc of, like, if you're just on it, the energy balance flows that direction. Totally. And then, like, it just kind of works its way back. And over the course of a marriage, you know, Jeannie and I have been together, married for 5 years. You guys have been married, you know, a long time too. Like, it works its way out in the end.
Yeah, it's almost like the water flows in the path of least resistance, for right? Sure. And the energy in the household kind of sees, you know, hey, this person's on, right? Like, it's going, like, that's the right direction to flow.
Yeah, for sure. And you also, like, from a business perspective, you kind of need to capitalize upon that, because if you invest the resources and the energy in the person, you need to help them enough to help them get out of the muck, or out of the tough time, or out of the injury, or out of the funk. But you can't go so far, because, like, you need to put the resources where you can to, you know, like, make it work when you're hot, you know?
And I think that's a benefit too. I think I was able to focus more on Kona because we, both of us had established partnerships and some financial stability, whereas a lot of athletes, they want to do well at Kona. They have the ability to do really well in Kona, but either out of greed or necessity, they've chased the money. And another thing I learned from those younger years, 2009, 2010, I was chasing the races, chasing the money, and also subsequently burning myself out in the process, right?
100%. Yeah, it's not easy. We were always, just circling back a little bit on the dynamic between you and Rinny, like I said earlier in the podcast, it was interesting for us to just view how you guys did it, see your operations, like see how you could go to training and be so locked in on a training session, and Rinny as well, like so laser focused, so professional. And then we could go home and have an old fashioned. Yeah. We could have a glass of wine. Yeah. You could stay up late and we could be, playing Pop Shot in the basement until midnight, and you're not stressing about that, even though we've got track at 7 a.m. the next morning. Like, how did you guys, or you or her or whoever, like, how did that compartmentalization happen? Like, is that something that's part of your guys' personalities? Is that one of you guys taking over and both of you kind of like becoming that, or like, how did that end up happening?
No, I think that's probably one of the reasons that we came together, because we were both like that separately. Yeah. She was a good reminder. Like, she was very good about taking breaks throughout the year, like kind of mid-season break, and then obviously after Kona break. But we love life, right? Yeah. And even before we met, neither of us really defined ourselves on our results, which is really important. And I think that helped us have long, successful careers too, right? If I had stayed on that path of just burying myself, and I wouldn't have been around 20 years later in the sport, still winning races.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's something like it's such an admirable quality, because this sport is it can be all consuming. And like over the years, we've really tried to find that element of balance and tried to do better. I don't think that Jeannie and I are like as good at it maybe as you guys are. Maybe we just do it in a different way, or we do it in our own way.
When it's what you need, right? Like you need to find what you need.
100%. Yeah. But it was always like, it was refreshing for us to see that it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to take a break. Yeah. It's okay to have an off season. It's okay to go out and have a couple drinks. Yep. You know what I mean?
And knowing that when you need to lock it down, you lock it down. And like that 8 weeks before Kona, there was no mucking around, right? That was, you're a prize fighter at that point. You're getting in the best shape of your life. Yeah. You're obviously going into that, you're in amazing shape, but no, this is something special. Yeah. And this is the hardest thing about that last Kona. It's like, man, I'm never going to be in this good a shape again, ever.
Was that 2019? 2019.
No, 2019. I didn't know that, because I'm like, 2019. I'm like, let's ready to take over the world. I had that, had a great contract for Roth in 2020 after that result. And Super League was going to bring me out, like all these awesome opportunities across the world. I'm like, yes, finally, Yeah. And then.
Yeah, totally. Sponsor of today's episode is Precision Fuel and Hydration. These guys have been an awesome partner of mine for many years, and I really love the entire product line. They helped me tremendously when it came down to getting my fluid needs sorted out, getting my electrolyte needs organized, and also just figuring out how many carbs per hour I needed. And they have an entire product line that has a lot of variety and different options for you. So my favorite option from them is the PF30 Chew. I sort of take them out of their wrapper and load them into my top tube storage compartment on my bike and just munch on those every 20 or 30 minutes when I'm out doing a hard training session or doing a race. They also have a bunch of sweat experts over there who can help you figure out exactly what your fluid, carbohydrate, and electrolyte needs are. So head on over to pfandh.com, and that will get you, code BigMetz will get you 15% off your first order. So enjoy that and check them out. That's a point I have on here. Like, so here's what, I guess this is the timeline, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're second in Kona.
Yep.
Right before that, we had trained in Kansas, 2019. Mm-hmm. I saw the build up to Kona. I was like, whoa. But your foot was broken.
Yep.
So it was really interesting to see you really locked in, but also have this element of like unknown. You go to Kona, you get second. I'm like, holy crap. That was like amazing. I was so stoked. I felt like I had a little part of it, just having helped you train in Kansas and whatever. That's when we first really started becoming friends. Anyways, you're second in Kona. Like you say, you're riding high. Next thing you know, it's COVID. And I don't want to brush over the heart attack, But I think like, at least from my perspective, that's something that happened to you. I don't know if it necessarily needs to define you unless you want it to be your definition, but you have this heart attack, which is crazy. Like, what's that like going from, hey, I'm second in the world. I'm one step closer, one step away from doing it.
Yeah.
And then feeling like it's fleeting away through things that are just totally out of your control.
Yeah. It could have been harder, I guess, right? Like, because I was able to get back to racing, but right after the heart attack, it's obviously like, okay, you almost died, but is your career over as well?
Yeah.
And in some ways, it was in terms of the athlete who I was and what I wanted to achieve in the sport. Because very much after that, it was about a journey back to Kona, and things were very different.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about necessarily trying to win Kona again or be at that level. And there was I had a lot of internal struggles with that and being able to do the work, and then even physical, getting some, arrhythmias and things like that. And, the heart muscle is a little damaged, still very strong. But honestly, I chose to look at everything with an attitude of grace and gratitude, really. I mean, at that point, I had done more in the sport than I honestly ever thought I would do. Obviously always wanted to win and always trained to win Kona, but, shit happens and you break your foot and you still put together an amazing race. Like, that's pretty awesome, right?
It's huge.
Yeah. And I do that training camp in Kansas, man. I love going to Lawrence, and that's another sign of like when we're talking about balancing me and Rennie, like the fact that she was saying, okay, I'm going to go to Lawrence, which isn't very much not what she normally did or, was her thing, kind of was a sign that she was putting the energy was flowing towards my direction in those latter years.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it could have been really hard, but I had two beautiful kids at that point, right? I had an amazing wife. Like, no, I'm not going to focus on what could have, should have, might have happened,
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm grateful to be here, and let's make the best of what's going on right now.
Yeah. It was, the whole heart attack situation was like very, like shocking to all of us.
Yeah.
Obviously. And like being one of your closest friends, I think like for me also, I was a little bit detached because like I wasn't really like, it's not like I was there when it happened. You know what I mean? I think like I didn't even know it happened until probably a few weeks after the fact, when you had like gotten healthy enough to like kind of reemerge into society. And I remember we were going to a swim. We were swimming at Elks at the pool over here. And you texted me and asked me for lunch. I'm like, this is the weirdest thing. Tim never asks me to go to lunch. I was like, if Tim and I are doing anything, we're either training our asses off or we're drinking.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
There's two options. Two options in this relationship.
I'm like, why is this dude trying to get me out to brunch? This is so weird. And then you told me, you're like, oh man, I had this heart attack thing. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I was just like, shocked. But it was really cool for me also, like, to just train with you in different phases, for us to talk a little bit less about maybe like the intensity of the races and talk more about the psychology behind stuff, where we both were in our lives, maybe more emotionally, like what you were feeling coming back from the heart attack. I remember us having conversations on bike rides, like, like what's the mindset? What's the goal? What's getting you out of bed in the morning? Those type of things. So like, hopefully, I know for me, it was like really important for me to get out there and still support you.
Yeah.
And for us to train together,
Yeah. And it was, knowing that like my goals had shifted, it was good for me to be a part of something else, something bigger than just myself. Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the beauties of having like a squad around you.
There was a couple times I remember like you were coming back from the heart attack, and I don't want to brush over like what you were able to accomplish post heart attack. You were still 2 podiums and 13th in Kona.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Like that's still very impressive results, whether you've had a heart attack or not. So I think that's like, that was really cool.
Yeah. Where are the other Americans? I was still a top American that year.
There you go.
Come on, guys.
I know.
Like Matt Hansen. Come on, buddy.
I know.
Come on, Matt.
I'm pretty confident Tim would have kicked my ass too if I made it that year. But it was interesting. Like I remember there was a couple sessions we were out there, everything. I mean, swim, bike, run, where you were coming back. I think you were still kind of in that phase of like the doctors were giving you green light, but you were still trying to like push up against that. Like, how far can I push this?
Right.
And I was like pretty fit at that time. 22 was like probably some of my fittest. And I remember just like, I think you said like, don't wait up.
Yep.
Don't back off. Go for it. And I remember like a bunch of rides, I was like, I was drilling it, and you were doing your thing, man. You were hanging in there and you were like, I got to get a bit more fit. I just got to get fitter. And it was like, it was refreshing for me. I think I was scared for maybe 3 sessions, like 1 swim, 1 bike, 1 run. I'm like, am I going to like
kill this guy?
Hurt Tim right now. I was like, I cannot kill my best friend in training right now. This is going to really I'm going to have to retire myself if that happens. And, anyways, that was like a freaky thing for like 3 workouts. And then I was like, he says he's good. Okay, let's smash it. And we were on the track and we were getting after it. And, we did training camps, so we did everything. Yeah.
And for me, it was important to have people around me too. Like my confidence in just being out on the road was I remember we were riding on 36 and like a truck came by and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is really scary out here. I hadn't been on the road for a while. I was on blood thinners at the time, right?
Yes.
And I was just like, whew, this is not safe.
Yeah, I remember, and I
would always take the inside. I always make you go on the outside.
Yes, 100%. And I felt like your bodyguard a little bit, honestly. Like I felt like I'm like this guy's protector right now. Like if anyone's going down, it's going to be me. I'm not letting Tim hit the ground right now. I hope that like Rinny felt better with you going out there with me.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
She was like, okay, if anything happens, Justin's going to make sure Tim's okay.
Yeah. She would ask, make sure.
Yeah, like Justin, BigMetz is going to be there, right?
BigMetz.
Yeah, he'll hop on your back, and you'll take him down from Ward. But like, I learned a lot of my best descending skills probably from you, just like how to take lines here and whatever. Like in the beginning, obviously just riding in the mountains a lot, you get a lot better. But we did a bunch of training camps and just rides in 2020. I remember when we were locked down, and we were just carving, ripping. And even when after post heart attack, this dude's on blood thinners. We're going 60 miles an hour down Lee Hill.
Don't tell Rinny that.
Yeah. You loved pushing that limit. I think that was part of it for you, at least from my perspective. It was like, this guy needs to feel like he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
He's going to be alive. He can push that limit as an athlete, as a professional athlete. Like we all you live to be up against that limit.
Yeah.
Whether it's the end of an Ironman and you're like about to pass out, or it's you're descending Lee Hill, you want to feel that, 60 mile an hour, you feel the speed wobbles a little bit, you kind of want to feel that edge. So I think having been removed from that with an event, you want to, I think we're both going to want to be chasing that. You're doing Xterra now, right?
Well, dude, I even remember when it was still a little while after the heart attack, but I was in my non-racing phase, and I was on my commuter bike, and I coming down from downtown, whatever, and I just found myself like racing cars on Broadway, like going uphill on Broadway, like almost 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, maybe I need to get back to racing.
Yeah. You just got to feel something,
I'm just like chasing a little bit of something.
Yeah, 100%. I think in addition to the heart attack, like you have mentioned your kids a bunch of times, like 3 beautiful children, how did becoming a father impact your life and your career? Because I was there when, Izzy came into your guys' lives, and then I was there when Finn came in. We did a bunch of training when Rinny was pregnant during COVID.
Yeah.
And that was like a crazy experience. And so throughout this time, I'm watching you become a father, compartmentalize your life, train, achieve results, be super freaking busy. But in my opinion, you only became stronger. You only became a better businessman. You only became a better father and a better husband. How did becoming a father impact your life, I guess?
It impacted it on definitely different ways on many levels. In terms of racing, it really gave me a new purpose, a new why.
Yeah.
When you're racing a long time, it's hard to have that something that drives you without that thing changing, and if you're trying to hold on to what really motivated you at 25 when you're 38, it's not going to work, right? So I had different things that I really had to understand and be honest with myself of what was driving me. And in 2018, after Izzy came along, Rinny and I made a decision hey, let's take the family on the road, just have a great time. And we were working with Talbot with the Tim and Rinny show, and Izzy, we went all over the world that year. I think Izzy went to almost every continent that year.
Wow.
Insane. And it was one of the most fun years of racing I had. And it wasn't just about winning anymore. And it's about sharing this journey as a family.
Yeah.
And as a result, because we put ourselves in a positive mindset and we put ourselves in the right place in life, the results came in the racing,
For sure. Could you imagine now doing it the way I'm doing it with 3 kids?
No, I can't even.
Is it just impossible?
Yeah, I can't even wrap my head around it. I was chatting with Izzy. She's almost 7 now.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, you're gonna crush Xterra," you know? I'm like, "No, I'm training like a dad now. I'm not training like I used to train." She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, you know, do you remember when I used to train for Ironman?" She's like, "Yeah, you were gone all the day."
There you go.
She's like, "You're gone, always
Yeah.
gone." I'm like, "Yeah, am I always gone now?" She's like, "No." She's like, "Okay, I get it." Yeah,
Yeah, totally. She's like,
I'm like,
putting
"Would you
those
rather me
pieces
go
together.
train like?" She's like, "No, I like this better."
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's cool that she's like, how much does she like remember from those years? Does she pick up on, and now I'm sure she comprehends what you guys have done, but
you know, it's very interesting. She didn't see Rinny kind of at Rinny's height, and she does have memories of me kind of at that level, and then obviously everything with the heart, like a lot of attention around that.
yeah.
So I'm just trying to continue explaining to her how her mom was the best,
Yeah.
and because she's like, "Oh yeah, you're the top American dad." I'm like, "Oh yeah." Well, I'm like, "Well, mom won. She was a world champion 3 times. She had the course record." And she's like, "Wait, what?" She actually said that. "Wait, what?" And she
Yeah.
goes, I hear her run in the other room. She says to Rinny, "Mom, you were the best in the world?" I'm like, "Yes, she was."
Yeah. I don't know. If I was dad, I'd just be like, yep, 3rd at North American
Yeah, right,
Champs,
right.
2022, baby. I would just own that one. I'd be like, Mom had her heyday. She had it. She was all good. I'm going to take the win for the kids. Get the dad points. But cool, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I do want to wrap things up here with a like rapid fire round.
All right.
If you're down for
Rapid fire, let's do it.
You ready for the rapid fire? All right. Were you more excited to bring home your Ford Raptor or Melvin?
Ford Raptor, 100%.
This dude loves his Ford Raptor. You still loving the Ford Raptor?
I need a new one.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's time for a new Raptor. All right, I'm not going to ask you about the gas station order because I know Diet Coke and a payday, or excuse me, Cherry Coke and a payday. Cherry Coke. My bad. Why is that hitting so hard for you, man? Where did that come about?
I don't know, man. You know, I don't know.
And you never mix it up. We went on how many rides? Every single time this guy's Cherry Coke and a payday.
I would, and you know what? I would always look at every single option. I'm like, Cherry Coke. I'm feeling it. It just was my thing, man.
Yeah, Andre and I joke. I had Andre on the podcast last week, and we were talking about all the old guys love a Cherry Coke. It's got to be like a nostalgia
old
thing.
Man drink.
Yeah, it's like Cherry Coke must have come out when you were a kid, and you go in the gas station.
I think it did.
Yeah, and it's like you're like, whoa! I had a Cherry Coke when I was 9, and that changed my life forever.
Like clear crystal Pepsi, whatever that was.
Yeah, and that's kind of like your only opportunity to be like to have Cherry Coke without any.
I don't drink Cherry Coke unless I'm on a long ride.
Yeah, you're like you're not going to the grocery store and being like, I'm gonna have Cherry Coke with dinner. You know?
At least it's not an RC cola. You know,
That's old
not
school.
that old.
Yeah. Now the new generation, we're just Red Bull, man. We're just all Red Bull. We need a little bit of that taurine, get it going.
Taurine.
All right. What is if you can remember, what was the most memorable session we ever did together?
It has to be the ride in Durango, dude.
Yeah, I agree.
Right when I'd left, I took the keys. I took the truck. Kenny Withrow was out with us.
Yeah.
And I rode away with the truck keys. And Kenny was stranded out in the what were those things?
The ancient ruins.
The ancient ruins.
Yeah. And Jeannie was there.
Jeannie was there, yeah.
Jeannie's sitting in the podcast studio now. It was the 3 of us.
Yeah. I had like 5 flat tires, right?
Yes. Well, we rode, so we did this 100, and to give people context, it was a 150-mile ride, right?
Yep.
From Durango to Mesa Verde.
Yes.
I don't know where Mesa Verde is exactly, but we did this like crazy epic route.
65 miles away from Durango. That's where it is.
It's on YouTube. I believe it's on YouTube somewhere. It's got to be on your channel. Yeah. Anyways, Tim leaves the keys, takes the keys in his pocket.
Oh my God.
Kenny's like, I'm going to get the B-roll here at Mesa Verde at the ancient ruins. We take off. Kenny's stuck with the Raptor. And that's how we knew Tim was like, he started time trialing back for the Raptor.
Yes.
He's like, I'm not leaving my Raptor at the ruins. He was all about it.
And the best part about that was like a 7-hour ride, or we were out there long with that delay. We're probably out there 8 or 8.5 hours.
Easy, yeah.
And then we packed up a cooler.
Yes.
And went out and boating.
Yes.
We went and rented the pontoon boat.
Which
I subsequently
you crashed it.
I was a little tired. I did run it aground.
I remember we were like all bonking, and Rinny or Kenny had like went and gotten provisions for us for the boat. And like we came home, we had a recovery drink. You're like, I've got the booking in like 30 minutes.
Yes, we got to go.
We're like, okay, fine. And I just remember Jeannie and I like gnawing on salami sticks. Like all of us were just sitting there eating salami to survive. Oh man, that whole trip was just chaos. It was like during COVID. It was like end of COVID or something.
Yep.
And we were just like, that was the first time I think we were, because Jeannie and I were still training pretty hard, and we were like, oh wow, like let's go do this training camp with Tim and Rinny. It'll be super fun. We'll bring Kenny. We'll bring Izzy. It'll be great. And we get out there, and we were training like 8 hours a day, sleeping like 4.
Yeah.
Drinking for like
playing cards,
playing Monopoly Deal until like 11 p.m. I remember Jeannie had a meltdown one night. Like, I can't do this. This is too much. Yeah. She just pushed her over the edge.
Why are we doing this?
That was definitely a memorable one. Yeah, we got to bring those days back one time coming up. All right. Question number 4. Talbot or Kenny?
Oh, you can't make me choose between the boys.
Oh, come on. All right. No, that's a fair question.
Kenny.
Yeah. Oh, man. Shots fired.
Sorry, wild man. Love you, buddy.
No, you know, Talbot's old school. He's Gen 1, but Kenny's the homie. We just had the experiences with Kenny. We got the time put in with the man. All right. This might be a repeat, but favorite training camp destination all time?
Oh, it's Lawrence.
Yeah.
Lawrence, Kansas, man. The people are so nice in Lawrence.
Yeah. I could go on about even just our solo pre-Kona 2022 camp.
Yeah.
Just the two of us.
Yeah.
And Kenny.
Yep.
And
in our little apartment.
Yeah, tiny apartment. And then, I mean, we had a blast there,
Kenny
too.
was sleeping on the stairway.
Yes.
Like the stair platform.
Yeah, he like was on a blow-up mattress. And that was a blast, too, because that was like, I think probably one of the first times we were just like solo, the two of us, for like 2 or 3 weeks, just locking it down, training hard. We had like a friend cooking food for us every night.
Yes,
and like that was kind of a vibe. That was fun. All right, final one. Who is your pick of your 3 kids to win Kona? There's got to be one who does following in the footsteps, you know?
Jameson, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
We don't know him well enough yet. I got to probably say Finn. Well, I don't know. It's hard. Finn's going to be a natural athlete, but who knows if he'll have the work ethic. Izzy's pretty focused. Ah, man. I don't know. Who do I pick?
I was going to ask you who your favorite kid was. Jeannie made me change the question. You already answered the tough one.
I do have one. I'm not going to say.
Oh, brutal. You whisper that one under the breath,
like, you can't have a favorite kid.
Yeah. It's not Melvin. I know that.
It's not Melvin. Oh, my gosh. Melvin. Freaking Melvin. If anybody wants to buy a French bulldog, I'll get you a good deal.
Oh, Jeannie's in the market. She'll take one over. All right, man. Well, that's all I got.
Awesome. That's great catching up, man.
Awesome catching up. Yeah, we'll have to do this more often off the mic and
or on the bike.
On the bike, would love that.
Off the bike, on the bike.
Yeah, you invited me for a mountain bike ride the other day, but I don't have a mountain bike, so I'm gonna have to get one. Yeah. Anyways, well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Endurance Matters podcast. Thanks again to Tim. See you in the next episode.
Cheers.
Really enjoyed that podcast. Just chatting with Tim has been awesome. We don't see each other quite as much anymore. Just, you know, when you have that training partner built in, training 25 hours a week for 4 years straight, you spend a lot of time with someone. So it was amazing to catch up with the guy, hear some of those stories again, and learn a few new tidbits. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you in the next one.